We all feel it, right? That little sense that something's off with our online world, that these powerful, invisible forces are shaping what we see and what we believe. But what if we've been pointing the finger at the wrong culprit this whole time? Okay, let's really get into this.
So, get this. A departing AI engineer leaves with this final warning. The world is in peril. It's a quote highlighted by researcher Dr. Robert Epstein, and he says it's a message we need to take very seriously. He's basically dedicated his career to uncovering what's really going on behind our screens.
Dr. Epstein's entire focus is on what he calls ephemeral experiences. Now, these are the little fleeting moments online, a search suggestion that pops up, the way your news feed is ranked, a reminder to vote for one candidate. They influence you, and then poof, they're gone. No paper trail.
So how do you even track something that disappears? Well, he built this incredible project called America's Digital Shield. You can think of it like a surveillance system in reverse, where citizens are the ones monitoring the tech giants. By capturing what thousands of real voters are actually being shown on their screens, he's creating a record of this otherwise invisible influence.
And that's the kicker, isn't it? That's what makes them so powerful. You can't go back and check the search results you got yesterday. You can't prove a certain video was pushed on you. The influence is incredibly potent, but it's also designed to be invisible.
And the power this stuff has? It is kind of terrifying. In his controlled experiments, Epstein found that by just tweaking search suggestions, he could swing undecided voters from a perfect 50-50 split to an unbelievable 90-10 landslide. And the craziest part? The voters had no idea they were being manipulated at all. I mean, that kind of influence is honestly frightening. But it brings us to a really critical question. Are we so focused on the manipulation machine, the algorithm, that we're completely missing the reason the machine even exists in the first place?
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to compare two totally different kinds of influence. One is as old as time. The other is dangerously new. And it all boils down to this. Choosing a steakhouse is not the same as choosing to go to war. Not even close.
So what's the big difference? It all comes down to one word: feedback. Look, if Google recommends a bad steakhouse, you find out that night. Your personal risk is low, a bad meal, and the correction is immediate. You just don't go back. But if it nudges you on, say, foreign policy or a huge federal regulation, the consequences are distant, they're spread out over millions of people, and the feedback loop is totally broken. Just think about the village winemaker or the local butcher, right? Their reputation was everything. If they ripped you off or sold you a bad product, the entire community would know about it, and they'd be out of business in a week. Their influence was kept in check by personal, local, immediate feedback. For the biggest questions we face today, that system is just gone. So if the tech itself isn't the root cause, what is? The source material argues it's the prize. Specifically, the massive, centralized power located in the federal government. That's the prize that has become so valuable that it's worth manipulating our entire reality just to win it.
Let's put some actual money on the table to see the scale we're talking about. Take a huge, well-known brand like Texas Roadhouse. In a recent cycle, they spent about $32 million on advertising. That sounds like a lot of money, right? Well, just hang on to that number for a second.
Now, look at this. In that same time frame, political advertisers spent $846 million on Google's platforms alone. And let's be super clear here. That's not Google spending the money. That's money from political campaigns and outside groups paying Google for direct access to you and me.
And here you can just see the difference. I mean, it's not even a fair fight. We're talking about political spenders pouring over 26 times more money into just one platform than a massive national restaurant chain spends on everything. The stakes are on a completely different planet.
And remember, Google is just one corner of this battlefield. When you start adding up all the disclosed spending from candidates, from the parties, from these giant PACs, and from so-called dark money groups, you get a persuasion economy that's measured in the tens of billions of dollars. And it is all aimed at one single target: controlling federal power.
See, it's not even just about winning elections. When Washington holds the power to make or break entire industries, pharma, banking, energy, tech, then those industries have no choice but to spend billions of dollars to get a seat at the table. They're just rationally responding to the massive incentive we've created.
So what's the ultimate result of this multi-billion-dollar war for our attention? Well, you end up in something that looks a lot like a modern version of Plato's cave. A place where some ideas don't just lose the debate, they never even get a chance to be heard.
But how does an idea disappear in the 21st century? It's not like there are book burnings in the town square. No, invisibility today works very differently. It's less about brute force and more about just flooding the zone.
Here's the playbook. First, the two major parties and all their allies spend so much money buying up ad space and attention that they essentially create the entire political reality for most people. Then, because of that sheer volume, any other views are just drowned out. They become almost impossible to find. And that leads to the final, most important step, non-appearance. Alternative ideas don't lose the argument. They never even get to make one.
So in our modern cave, the walls aren't made of rock. They're made of rankings, recommendations, and search results. The modern censor doesn't need to burn the book anymore. They can just make sure the book never surfaces. If an idea doesn't rank, for most people, it may as well not exist.
Okay, so if trying to regulate the algorithm or break up the tech companies isn't the real answer, what is? The source argues that we've just been treating the symptom. The real solution is to go after the cause.
And this really is the entire argument in a nutshell. The relentless, high-stakes battle for our minds is going to continue as long as the reward for winning is total control over the central machinery of our country. So the idea is simple. You don't fix the machine, you shrink what the machine is fighting over.
The proposed solution, then, is this simple and this profound. Reduce the power, the scope, and the value of the federal government. If Washington simply decides less, there's a whole lot less incentive for every powerful institution in society to spend billions trying to control it. And this is where we see the great irony of it all, the trap of centralization. We start with a real problem. Tech manipulation is out of control. So what's the solution we always hear? More federal rules, more government oversight. But wait, what does that do? It gives even more power to the very prize everyone is already fighting tooth and nail for, which means the incentive to manipulate us all just gets stronger and stronger.
So we're left with this final, crucial question to think about. As we all debate how to fix the very real problems of our digital world, are the solutions we typically hear about going to help? Or are they just another way of feeding the very beast we're all trying to tame?